I was 12 years old when my parents decided I was finally old enough to stay home alone. They made it sound ordinary, like a small milestone everyone reached. 3 hours, maybe a little more. Dad working late, mom out with friends, pizza money on the counter, emergency numbers written neatly on a yellow sticky note beside the phone. They walked me through the rules slowly, like I might forget them the moment the door closed. Lock the doors. Don't answer the phone unless it's us. Don't open the door for anyone. I remember nodding too eagerly. I didn't want them to think I was scared. I wanted them to trust me. I wanted to prove I could handle it. Our house was the kind of place that made you feel safe without trying. 2 stories, light-colored siding, a small front porch with a single step that creaked when you stood on it just right. We lived in a quiet cul-de-sac in Dayton, the kind where neighbors waved but mostly minded their own business. Kids rode bikes until dark. Porch lights flicked on one by one like a routine. When my parents backed out of the driveway around 6:30 p.m., I stood in the doorway and watched until their taillights disappeared around the corner. Only then did I close the door, slide the deadbolt into place, and hook the chain. The click of the lock sounded louder than it ever had before. The house felt different immediately. Not threatening, just hollow. Every sound had space to echo now. The refrigerator hummed. The air conditioner kicked on with a low rumble. Somewhere upstairs, the house creaked as it always did when the temperature changed. I ordered pizza, ate it on the couch, and flipped through channels until I landed on cartoons. The windows slowly darkened as the sun went down. I remember thinking how grown-up it felt to control the TV, to eat without being told to sit at the table. Around 8:40, I muted the TV and went into the kitchen to grab a soda. That's when I heard it. A toilet flushing. Upstairs. At first, my brain refused to connect the sound to reality. I actually smiled for half a second, waiting for the explanation to arrive. Pipes shifting, water pressure, something normal. But it wasn't normal. The upstairs bathroom was at the far end of the hallway, right across from my parents' bedroom. No one used it unless guests were over. Even then, people usually used the downstairs bathroom. The sound was unmistakable. The full flush. The rush of water. Then the hollow echo as the tank refilled. I stood frozen in the kitchen, soda can still unopened in my hand. The house went quiet again. Too quiet. I could hear my own breathing now, shallow and fast. My ears strained for any other sound, desperate for proof that I'd imagined it. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, measured, above me, not heavy enough to shake the ceiling, not rushed, just deliberate. I whispered, "Mom?" My voice sounded wrong in the empty house, like it didn't belong there. No answer. The footsteps stopped, right above the living room. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I backed away from the kitchen and into the hallway, my eyes fixed on the staircase as if someone might appear at the top at any second. That's when the toilet flushed again. Not halfway. Not a glitch. A full, deliberate flush. Something in me snapped. Panic hit all at once, sharp and overwhelming. I ran into the downstairs bathroom and locked the door behind me, sliding down against the tub with my knees pulled to my chest. My hands shook as I grabbed the phone. It took me 3 tries to dial correctly. When my dad answered, his voice calm and familiar, I started crying immediately. "There's someone upstairs," I whispered. I heard the toilet. Someone's walking. There was a pause on the line. I could picture him sitting up straighter, his expression changing. "Alex," he said quietly, "listen to me. I want you to leave the house right now. Go to the Wilsons next door. Do not go upstairs. Do not look around." I didn't ask questions. I unlocked the bathroom door and stood still, listening. Nothing. The silence felt worse than the noise. I crept into the living room, every step slow, afraid that any sudden movement might draw attention. The staircase was empty. The upstairs hallway was dark. I unlocked the front door, my fingers clumsy on the chain. The moment it opened, I ran. I didn't even grab my shoes. I banged on the Wilsons' door until Mrs. Wilson opened it, startled. I barely got the words out before breaking down completely. Police arrived within minutes. My parents arrived shortly after that, my mom crying, my dad pale and furious in a way I'd never seen before. The officers searched the house thoroughly. Upstairs, they found the bathroom window open. It wasn't broken. It hadn't been forced, just unlocked. There were muddy footprints on the tile floor near the toilet, a partial print near the sink. In the trash, a crumpled paper towel that was still damp. Someone had washed their hands. Nothing was stolen. No drawers opened. No electronics touched. That detail unsettled everyone more than anything else. The officer crouched in front of me and asked if I'd heard anything else. I told him about the footsteps stopping above the living room. He nodded slowly. "That's directly under the bathroom," he said. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. For weeks, every sound made my heart race. Pipes shifting sounded like footsteps. The upstairs bathroom became something I avoided entirely. I refused to go up there alone after dark. My parents installed motion lights, better locks, and an alarm system. They tried to reassure me, but I could tell they were shaken too. Years later, my dad told me something he hadn't wanted me to know at the time. The police believed the man had been inside the house for a while before the toilet flushed. Long enough to be certain no adults were home. Long enough to feel comfortable. Comfortable enough to stop and use the bathroom. That thought still makes my stomach turn. I'm an adult now. I live alone. I lock every door. I check every window. I still hesitate when I hear unexplained sounds in my house. And sometimes, late at night, when the pipes groan or the house settles, I remember the sound that changed everything. The toilet flushing upstairs, and the certainty in that moment that I wasn't alone. When you grow up in a council house, you learn early how sound works. You know which floorboards creak, which radiators knock, which doors echo when the wind hits them just right. You learn what normal sounds like. That's important because when something doesn't fit, you feel it immediately, before you understand why. I was 10 years old in the winter of 1997, and I stayed home alone after school most weekdays. My mom worked evenings at a care home across town. She'd be gone for just under an hour after I got home. I had rules, lots of them. They were written on a piece of paper stuck to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a strawberry. Lock the door as soon as you're inside. Don't answer the phone. Don't answer the door. If anyone knocks, ignore it. She repeated them every morning like a ritual, bending down to my level, gripping my shoulders. "You don't open the door for anyone," she'd say. "Not neighbors, not police, not even if they say they know me." I always nodded. I was a quiet kid, obedient. The kind teachers liked because I didn't cause trouble. Our house was small but solid. Red brick, narrow hallway, living room in the front, kitchen in the back. Stairs straight up from the hallway, 2 bedrooms and a tiny bathroom upstairs. The front door had a frosted glass panel and a letterbox low enough that you could see someone's shoes if they stood close. That detail will matter later. The day it happened was bitterly cold. One of those gray English afternoons where the sky never really gets bright. I walked home from school with my scarf pulled up over my mouth, breath fogging the air. When I got inside, I locked the door immediately. Bolt, chain. Then I leaned against it for a second, listening. Nothing. Just the quiet hum of the house. I made toast, sat on the sofa, and turned the TV on low like my mum preferred. The house always felt bigger when I was alone. The silence stretched between sounds. About 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I froze. The bell wasn't loud, but it echoed through the house like it always did. One short ring. I didn't move. People knocked on the wrong door all the time. Delivery drivers, neighbors. Mum told me to ignore it, so I did. The bell rang again. Longer this time. I muted the TV. My heart was beating fast, but I wasn't scared yet. Just alert. I told myself it would stop if I didn't respond. Then the bell rang a third time. And this time, a man spoke. "Daniel," he said. My name. Not shouted, not aggressive, calm, familiar, like someone trying not to startle a dog. "Daniel," he said again. "Open up." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. No one outside that house should have known my name. My mom didn't tell neighbors when she worked late. I didn't talk to strangers. I didn't answer the phone. I stayed inside. I followed the rules. I sat perfectly still on the sofa, staring at the front door. The man sighed. I heard fabric shift, like he'd leaned closer. "I know you're home," he said gently. "Your mom will be back soon." My hands started shaking. I pressed them between my knees to stop it. How did he know that? I didn't answer. I didn't breathe. There was a pause, long enough that I thought maybe he'd gone. Then I heard something that made my skin crawl. The soft scrape of shoes on concrete. The sound of someone crouching. I slid off the sofa and lowered myself to the floor, moving slowly so the springs wouldn't creak. I crawled toward the hallway, my chest tight, ears straining. From where I was, I could see the front door, and beneath it, shoes. A man's shoes, right up against the door, close enough that the toes nearly touched the wood. He was crouched down, looking through the letterbox. "Daniel," he said again, quieter now, closer. "I can see you." That was when I started crying. I didn't make a sound, not at first. Tears just came, hot and unstoppable. I covered my mouth with my hand, terrified he'd hear me. My mind raced. I thought about the rules. I thought about the phone in the kitchen. I thought about how far away my mum was. The man stood up. I heard the letterbox flap click softly as it settled back into place. "Don't be scared," he said. "I just want to talk." I scrambled backward on my hands and knees and ran up the stairs, every step loud now, every movement clumsy with panic. I locked myself in my bedroom and shoved my desk against the door. I didn't turn the light on. I hid in the corner, knees to my chest, phone clutched in my hands. The doorbell rang again, then knocking. Slow, deliberate. Each knock spaced out like he had all the time in the world. Then silence. I don't know how long I sat there. 10 minutes? 20? Time felt stretched and unreal. When my mum finally came home, I was still in the corner, shaking so hard my teeth hurt. She found the front door locked, the house quiet. When she came upstairs and saw the desk against my door, she knew something was wrong. I told her everything. The police came that evening. They checked the area, talked to neighbors. One officer knelt down in front of me and asked me to describe the man's voice. "Calm," I said, like he wasn't angry. They found muddy shoe prints right outside our door, and marks on the letterbox flap. Fingerprints. The officer told my mum they'd had reports of a man approaching homes where children were alone after school. He'd watch routines, learn names. We moved 6 months later. Different part of the city, different house, different locks. But the fear stayed. I'm an adult now. I still lock my door the second I'm inside. I don't answer it unless I'm expecting someone. I still feel uneasy when someone uses my name too casually. And sometimes, when I hear a doorbell ring late in the afternoon, I'm 10 years old again, sitting on a sofa, staring at a door, listening to a man who shouldn't have known my name say it anyway. The first thing you should know is that I wasn't supposed to be scared. I was 13. Old enough to stay home alone, according to my parents. Old enough to use the microwave, answer the phone properly, and lock the doors when they left. Still, they hired a babysitter sometimes. Not because I needed one, but because it made them feel better. That night in October 2008 was one of those times. My parents were going out for dinner downtown. Nothing special. They told me the babysitter, Sarah, would arrive later than usual, around 9:30 p.m. I'd be alone for just under an hour. I said I was fine with it. I meant it. Our house was a detached 2-story place in a quiet Calgary neighborhood. Beige siding, white trim, a narrow side yard that led to the backyard. Inside, it always smelled faintly like laundry detergent and dust. Familiar. Safe. When my parents left around 8:20, I locked the door behind them and double-checked it, twisting the handle to make sure it wouldn't open. The house felt different immediately, like it always did when adults left. Quieter, but heavier somehow. I went upstairs to my room, put on music quietly, and started homework. The sky outside darkened fast, autumn nights coming early. Wind rattled the trees along the fence, branches scraping softly against the siding. Around 9 I went downstairs to get a snack. That's when I noticed the kitchen light was on. I paused at the bottom of the stairs. I was sure I'd turned it off. The light cast a warm glow down the hallway, making the rest of the house feel darker by comparison. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I'd forgotten. I walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. That's when I heard movement. A soft sound, like a cupboard door closing gently. Behind me. I turned around, heart skipping. "Sarah," I called. No answer. The kitchen was empty. One of the upper cabinets was open slightly, the door tilted just enough to catch the light. I stared at it, my mind trying to fill in gaps. Maybe the house had settled. Maybe the door hadn't been shut properly earlier. I closed it and went back upstairs, feeling embarrassed for being nervous. At 9:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text message from Sarah. "Hey Emily, running a bit late. I'll be there in about 20 minutes. My stomach dropped. I reread it twice, hoping I'd misunderstood. Running late, which meant she wasn't there yet. My hands started to shake. I stood up slowly, listening. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses in on you. I locked my bedroom door and sat on the bed, phone clutched tight. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the sounds were normal. Maybe the light had been left on earlier. Then I heard footsteps. Downstairs. Slow. Careful. Not the heavy thump of someone moving quickly. Not rushed. Measured. Like whoever it was didn't want to make noise. I texted Sarah back with trembling fingers. "Are you sure you're not here?" No response. The footsteps stopped. I heard the faint sound of a drawer sliding shut. My breathing went shallow. I pressed my hand over my mouth, terrified that whoever was downstairs could hear me. Then, something happened that made everything worse. The stairs creaked, one step, then another. Someone was coming upstairs. I slid off the bed and crouched behind it, my phone glowing faintly in my hand. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't scream. I couldn't run. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs and stopped. Right outside my room. I watched the shadow beneath the door. It shifted slightly like someone adjusting their stance. A hand touched the doorknob, not turning it. Just resting there. Testing. I felt tears running down my face, silent and hot. I stared at the lock, willing it to hold. After a few seconds that felt like hours, the hand withdrew. The footsteps moved away. Down the hall, down the stairs. I waited. I don't know how long I stayed there, frozen, barely breathing. When my phone buzzed again, I nearly screamed. Another text from Sarah. "Just parked. Be inside in a minute." Panic surged through me. I scrambled to my feet and unlocked the door just as I heard the front door open. "Emily," Sarah called. I ran out of my room and down the stairs so fast I nearly fell. When I saw her standing in the entryway, jacket still on, keys in hand, I broke down completely. She thought I was hurt at first. I tried to explain through sobs, the kitchen light, the cupboards, the footsteps, the hand on the door. Her face went pale. She checked the house with her phone ready to call 911. The kitchen drawers were closed. Nothing looked disturbed, except one thing. The back door. Unlocked. Police arrived shortly after my parents rushed home. They searched the house, the yard, the alley behind our fence. They found fingerprints on the kitchen drawer handle. Not mine, not Sarah's, not my parents'. They also found something else. In the downstairs bathroom trash, there was a paper towel, damp. Someone had washed their hands. Nothing was stolen. That was the part everyone kept repeating. Nothing was stolen. But later, one of the officers told my parents that whoever it was had likely entered while I was upstairs and stayed after they realized I was home alone. Waiting. I didn't stay home alone after that. Not for years. Even now, as an adult, I feel uneasy in quiet houses. I double-check locks. I flinch when lights are on that shouldn't be. I still remember the weight of that hand on my doorknob. Sometimes I wonder how long they'd been there before I noticed anything. And what would have happened if Sarah hadn't been late? I was 9 years old when I learned that mirrors don't always show you what's there. Sometimes they show you what's waiting. My parents both worked late shifts when I was a child. My father drove a delivery truck at night. My mother cleaned offices downtown after business hours. It wasn't unusual for me to be alone until close to midnight. Back then, it felt normal. Our apartment was on the fourth floor of a concrete building near the port of Marseille. Old place, thin walls, long hallways that echoed if you ran down them too fast. The kind of building where you always heard doors opening and closing, voices drifting up from below, footsteps on the stairs. That night in 1994, though, the building felt empty. Too empty. I remember it was late because the cartoons were over and the TV schedule had switched to programs meant for adults. News reruns, quiet talk shows. I sat cross-legged on the floor in front of the television, the volume turned low like my mother insisted. The apartment lights were dim. Just the lamp in the living room and the glow from the TV. Outside, the streetlights cast a dull orange haze through the curtains. Around 11:30 p.m., I felt the familiar pressure in my bladder. I hesitated. The bathroom was down the hall, past my parents' bedroom. The hallway light flickered sometimes, and I didn't like it on at night. Still, I told myself not to be ridiculous. I turned off the TV and stood up. The apartment seemed quieter than it should have been. No voices from neighboring units, no doors slamming, just the faint hum of the refrigerator. As I walked down the hall, I noticed the bathroom door was already open. That was unusual. We always closed it. I paused, listening. Nothing. I stepped inside and turned on the light. The small bathroom filled with harsh white brightness, shadows retreating into corners. I did what I needed to do, washed my hands, and splashed some water on my face. That's when I looked up, at the mirror. At first, everything looked normal. My face, pale, hair sticking up in the front, eyes heavy with sleep. Then I saw him, in the reflection, standing behind me, in the hallway. He was tall, too tall for the narrow space. His head nearly brushed the top of the doorframe in the mirror. He wore dark clothing that blended into the hallway shadows, his face partially obscured. I spun around. The hallway was empty. My heart slammed against my ribs. I laughed nervously, embarrassed at myself. I told myself it was just my imagination, shadows, reflections playing tricks. I turned back to the sink. The man was still there, clearer now. He stood just outside the bathroom door, his body angled slightly, like he was leaning to see around the corner. His face was pale, his eyes dark and focused, looking at me. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the mirror, my body frozen in place, my hands gripping the edge of the sink so hard my fingers hurt. Then he smiled. Slowly. Deliberately. Not wide, not exaggerated. Just enough to show he was pleased that I could see him. I screamed. I shut my eyes and screamed as loud as I could, backing away from the sink until I hit the wall. I covered my face with my arms and slid down to the floor, crying so hard my chest ached. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Seconds, minutes. When I finally opened my eyes, the bathroom was empty. The mirror showed only me. The hallway beyond was dark and still. I scrambled to my feet and ran to the living room, slamming the door shut behind me. I dragged a chair against it, even though I knew it wouldn't help much. I called my mother's work number with shaking hands. She answered on the second ring. "Luke?" she said, already worried. "There's someone here," I cried. "I saw him in the mirror." She told me to lock myself in the living room and not move. She said she was calling the police and coming home immediately. I sat on the floor, my back against the couch, staring at the door. Every sound made me flinch. Pipes rattling, the building settling, footsteps somewhere far below that might have been real or might not. When the police arrived, I heard them before I saw them. Boots on the stairs, voices echoing in the hallway outside our apartment. They searched every room. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no open windows, no disturbed furniture. But while one officer was checking the hallway outside our door, another spoke quietly to my parents in the kitchen. Later, my father told me what they'd said. Earlier that night, the apartment next to ours had been broken into. The residents weren't home. The burglar had entered through the attic crawl space, a narrow passage that connected several units on our floor. When police arrived at that apartment, they found signs that someone had moved through the crawl space toward our unit. They believed he'd hidden when he realized someone was home, a child. They never caught him. My parents tried to convince me that what I saw was just a reflection, a trick of light, fear making shapes out of shadows. But I know what I saw. I didn't see him in the hallway. I saw him only in the mirror, as if he knew that was the safest place to be seen, as if he wanted me to know he was there, without ever stepping into the room. We moved a year later, different building, different neighborhood, but mirrors were never the same for me. Even now, as an adult, I avoid looking into mirrors in dark rooms. I turn lights on first. I check behind me before I wash my face. Because sometimes, late at night, when my apartment is quiet and the hallway light is off, I still remember that smile. Not threatening, not angry, just pleased. Like someone who knows they've been seen and didn't need to do anything else.